Okay, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining. This is the first of what should be a weekly webinar series put on by Umbrella Technology Group. Today's topic will be timely as it's associated with social engineering and how we've seen a pretty drastic increase in a lot of the different methods of social engineering as it relates to the pandemic and utilizing everyone's fear around the pandemic, as well as the financial ramifications of some of the stimulus checks and things of that sort from the government. I guess we'll get started with who I am first and what Umbrella Technology Group is and why we're doing this. So I am Eric Hester. I'm the founder and CEO of Umbrella Technology Group. We are a managed service provider and managed services company. We provide managed IT support and cybersecurity services. We are running this webinar series really for awareness. This isn't a sales pitch. This isn't about our services as much as it's about cybersecurity and IT concerns that are present in the market today. So this will be a short presentation, really bringing the topic up, and then we'll have Q&A at the end if anybody has any questions or thoughts to add. And with that, we'll jump right into it. So first of all, what is social engineering? Basically, social engineering is hacking people. You as a user have the access needed to get to information that's private in nature and that is valuable to hackers. So it's easier to utilize your existing access and hack you than it is to hack a computer system and gain the access that you already have. So really what social engineering is impersonating, right? It's going to involve some form of impersonating someone you trust. It's going to involve following social norms. It's going to involve using titles and uniforms and the formality that makes you comfortable that somebody is who they say they are. So it's human nature to trust certain things like a uniform, certain things like someone's occupation or supposed occupation. And then also if somebody is confident enough and presents their case with formality, that generally will cause people to not question it. So this can be something that's done in person. This can be something that's done through email, text messages, phone calls, really any way they can get in touch with someone they believe has the access they need. They will use those methods, maybe multiple methods, to bolster their case even more. And they will prey on your trust to get what they need. So that's really what social engineering is. It's about getting to information without having to spend the effort of actually hacking a computer system or network. So a little more detail when I say, social engineering is impersonation. There's obviously many forms of impersonation that people could utilize, one of which would be email-based. So these are things that a lot of people are familiar with at this point. These are phishing attacks. These are business email compromises. And that is basically where you have a compromise of an email address, and then someone is going to send you what looks like a legitimate form of information gathering. So that phishing is when you get an email that looks like it came from Bank of America. It looks like it came from your bank. It looks like it came from your credit card company. Looks like it came from the IRS, for instance. Again, utilizing a trusted personality and impersonating that to gain your trust. A business email compromise is where you have a hacker that is impersonating an executive or person of authority within your organization and requesting you to take an action on their behalf. So this would be someone sending you an email saying, I'm unable to get to our bank website, but I really need to transfer funds for a deal I'm working on. The email looks like it came from the CEO, and it says transfer $25,000 to this account number. And again, this is utilizing your inherent trust of the executive in your company. They do a decent job typically of impersonating the email address or identity of the executive in question. So quite often people will take action with no verification, which is what they're hoping for. From a phone standpoint, it's the same concept where you're going to have either a phone call or a SMS message where they're going to either utilize the identity of a corporation that you're familiar with, or they're going to utilize the identity of a person you are familiar with and trust. So this would be getting a SMS message that says you need to send your Social Security information to verify a pending transaction that's coming, or a phone call in which they say they're the IRS and they need you to give them information so they can send you your stimulus check, or that they are a computer support organization and you need to send them money so that they can correct an issue on your computer, for instance. And then the final component, which is honestly less prevalent, but is still a concern that does occur, is in-person impersonation. So most common form would be service personnel impersonation. This would be someone coming in and impersonating a cable provider, a telecom provider, a utility provider, could be a shipping company, anybody that is routinely in your office and as part of their job has an inherent capability of getting into more private areas of your business. So say the cable provider comes in and says, I need to get to your IT closet because we're replacing your modem and we're going to update your service and give you more bandwidth. Most people would gladly take someone back to their IT room because they're going to get more bandwidth. Why would anyone walk in and say that if it weren't true, right? Another possible in-person scenario would be government employee impersonation. Again, especially if you say you're FBI or CIA or even you're the IRS or a local government entity, most people are immediately frightened, and that fear causes them to not question the scenario and do as they're asked. Again, this is also, both of these forms are based on usually if you see a uniform, you inherently trust the meaning of that uniform without question. So someone dressed as the role they are representing takes on that role in people's mind without question, typically. And then the final piece, this typically would only happen in a larger organization, but would be employee impersonation. This would be somebody coming in the lobby and finding an employee with the correct credentials, walking up and saying, hey, I forgot my credentials today. I forgot my ID. Can I walk in behind you, or can you let me in this door? And typically in larger organizations, not everybody knows everybody anyway, so it's pretty easy to have empathy there and let somebody in when you really shouldn't. Even worse would be somebody saying, I forgot my password, or can you reset my password, or something along those lines as well. Again, all of these are based on riding on the trust you already have with certain companies and people. So the question I get a lot when I bring these things up is, why would someone target me? I'm just little old me, little old business, whatever the case is, and you feel like there's really no legitimate reason for someone to want any information you have, or maybe this is from a personal perspective. I don't have a lot of money. Why would anybody go after me and try to take my money? They're not going to get much. That mentality. But what people are usually missing is there are now more attacks that focus on taking your information, which, although you feel like it wouldn't be important to others, it is important to you. and generally is very critical to your business or your personal life, and then they can hold you at ransom, right? So they take the fact that it has value to you and utilize that to their ends. So it's not as important that it's critical data that the world could utilize and they can sell or that would cause damage. It's that it would cause damage to you personally or your business. The other piece is aggregating data. So if you take 100 of the small, seemingly insignificant businesses or people, that starts becoming a pretty considerable asset that can be utilized, sold, whatever the case may be. So they may not just be attacking you, they may be attacking hundreds of you and are able to take that in aggregate and do something with it. The other concept is what's called climbing the ladder, where you may give them some piece of information that allows them to take the next step in their overall strategy of gaining the information they ultimately want. So although your information and your access directly does not give them what they want, it will allow them to take the actions they want to take further down the line. And then obviously the pandemic, as we're talking about today, has created a vastly larger number of opportunities to impersonate and attempt to gain access to not only information but ransom concepts where they're taking your money for potential protection, either financially or medically during this time. So things related to the Paycheck Protection Program for businesses, for instance, there may be phishing emails or phone calls related to help to get your business the forgivable loan as part of the Paycheck Protection Program. Same thing with stimulus checks. They can call people directly or email or text and offer to accelerate the payment of stimulus checks, which this is very heavily being used against the senior population, preying on people's need for the money to get here. And if someone will offer to get it here quickly, then that's even, more appealing now than ever. So these are the concepts that exist all of the time, but during the pandemic, they now have new scenarios to utilize using these impersonation techniques that are relevant and are preying on the fact that people are afraid and preying on the fact that people are looking for help and looking for assistance, which obviously is deplorable, but this is what these things are meant to do. They're get-rich-quick schemes for the hackers involved. So that's a frightening story, Eric. What do I do about it? So the most important thing when it comes to social engineering is awareness. So training, right? There's a lot of good resources out there, both publicly on the internet, available through local organizations such as Umbrella Technology Group. But the important thing is to keep this front of mind, top of mind, that these are things that can happen to anybody, and you need to really be conscious of the fact that people will prey on your trust. So it's not a matter of saying trust no one, it's more a matter of saying trust but verify, right? So if that charter person comes into your office, ask them to see a work order, or ask someone in the office, do we have an appointment with charter? Typically, service organizations aren't just going to show up at your place of business, right? They're going to have scheduled an appointment because they want to know that you're there. So not having an appointment with somebody and they just show up, there's nothing wrong with saying, I wasn't expecting you, this isn't a good time, can you please have an appointment scheduled? Or again, ask for a work order that shows this was requested or formally set up. Same thing with a government official. Anybody who comes in, you have the right to ask them who they are and why they're there. You don't have to be afraid to have someone verify that they have a right to be in your office and are supposed to be in your office and have a valid reason for doing business. So So that's probably the biggest piece, is awareness, training, and then starting to, trust but verify. You don't have to be adversarial. You don't have to be confrontational. It's simply a matter of, hey, you're asking to do something that's sensitive in my business. I think it's fair for me to ask you, do you have the right to do that, and why are you doing it? Same thing, like I said, with the employee scenario, where someone asked to follow you in using your ID badge or using your password or whatever the case may be. That's your access, and you are responsible for it. And just giving it to someone without verifying that they deserve it, there's nothing wrong with that. And people should get used to that concept. The other pieces, there's obviously things you can do with technology. Adding proper email filtering, where a lot of these attacks aren't even making it to you. That's important. Nothing in that area is perfect. There's nothing you can buy that's going to stop all of these attacks, because of the fact that they are impersonating something that should have access. So a lot of the systems will let this through because they had done a good enough job impersonating a real recipient or sender. Another piece that's often overlooked is physical security. You don't want to leave your equipment that has your sensitive information on it open to the public. You don't want to leave your desktops and terminals unlocked and in public areas where people, again, can utilize your access to gain information. So having physical security, access control on your doors, cameras, having a good identity management policy where you are locking your workstations, using two-factor authentication, so that if somebody does make it all the way to one of your systems, they can't easily gain full access. Another important piece is risk analysis, just gauging how big of a risk you actually have at the moment. Have you done things like have a backup plan? Have you done things like having a disaster recovery plan? Do you have an incident response plan where the worst case to happen and someone does successfully breach your organization? Do you have training in place? Have you had an incident in the past? Do you have insurance? You want to look through all of these things and really get a good feeling for where you actually stand. So instead of having irrational fear about the situation, you can have realistic goals of how to resolve it, and you at least know what your risk is and the potential of harm that could happen to your business, as opposed to, again, irrational fear where it's, I don't know if it's going to happen and it's too vague of a concept, so I'm just not going to think about it anymore. If you make it a concrete risk, then you can actually take some actions to solve it. And again, as I mentioned, some of these actions, having a backup plan, so if somebody does take your data hostage, you have a way to recover. Having a disaster recovery plan should someone do harm to your equipment or take you offline for an extended period of time. Having an actual plan for what happens when an incident occurs. These things are critical to being proactive and not waiting until something's happened when you no longer have the option. This also goes to the point of insurance. There are very good policies related to cyber liability at this point. It's very similar to the liability insurance you might get for your business, and it's not something you can get after it's happened, right? So it's a minimal expense overall, and it can cover things like ransom that occurs to you. It can cover things like loss of productivity and recovering the loss of profit associated with that. So again, thinking about these things now versus when they happen is what's important, so you have a plan. Or, of course, working with someone who can help you form a plan is what's critical in this scenario, because no one's perfect. These people are very good at what they do, and no matter how much training you have and how much verification you do, someone can slip through the cracks, and you want to make sure when they do that you have a good plan in place. So The worst case scenario, what do you do if you actually do fall prey to social engineering? What do you do if someone does actually fall through the cracks of your training and plan? Number one, like I said, have an incident response team. This should consist of your CEO, someone from your accounting organization, CFO potentially, someone from your IT organization, CIO, CISO, your managed service provider, whatever the case may be. You want to have this in place and have these people know it's one of their responsibilities. So then when something happens, you can create a war room type environment, get everyone together, form a plan, react quickly, and get everyone on the same page as far as next steps and what you need to do so that a small problem doesn't become a big problem. The other piece is you want to notify everybody else involved as quickly as possible. Call your insurance company, call your bank, notify your internet service provider. If relevant, involve law enforcement. You want to do this as quickly as possible because just like any crime, the longer you wait, the harder it is to gather evidence and the harder it is to catch the person involved. So the speed at which you react is critical. Hopefully it never happens, but if it does, you need to be prepared to react quickly, get your team together, get the relevant third parties together, start gathering information so that you can have a good chance of catching who did this and potentially recovering whatever was stolen. So it's really like any other crime. You want to take it seriously and you want to react promptly so that you have a chance of really getting back to a good state. And if you don't do this ahead of time and think about it, you won't be in a position to think about it at the time. You'll be very upset. You'll be reacting emotionally, and this won't get taken care of efficiently, and you could lose a lot of information. So it seems like something that only happens to someone else until it happens to you. So you want to make sure to take the proper precautions, even though it may seem very unlikely. So I don't see any questions currently in the queue. If you have any questions, just pop them into the Q&A section on the right-hand side. If you think of something after the fact or you can't think of it now or I'd rather ask it later, feel free to shoot me an email. You can just send it to eric.hester@umbrella.tech. And we will follow up with some emails to those of you who attended, and that'll give you some more information. We'll share this slide deck, and we will also follow up with some information about what Umbrella Technologies can do related to these problems. If you have interest in that area, we'd love to talk to you more. So with that said, like I said, I don't see anybody raising their hand or any questions, so I'll give you a little of your time back. We will be doing this every Tuesday. I would love for you to join us again, whether you're a customer, you're a potential customer, or just somebody who's interested in this type of information. We'd love to have you join, ask questions, participate, tell your friends, tell your peers. Again, we'll have a new topic every week. We're going to start moving towards more of a podcast format with guest speakers along with me. So I think it'll be very informative and will grow over time into something I think that'll be very useful for you. So like I said, please comment and let us know if there's anything we could do different or better, or you have any questions about this topic. But if not, have a great day, and we will talk to you next Tuesday.